Naafiri is one of the most annoying champions in the game, and by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly how you can always beat Naafiri on mid lane. First and foremost, we need to understand, what does Naafiri even want to do in the lane? Well, it is a champion that basically has two modes. Mode number one is the poke mode, where she basically keeps throwing these Qs at you, doesn't really cost all that much mana, very annoying to verse, and these dogs will basically help her CS. And the other mode that she has is the all-in mode. And this is mainly something that she will do if you may mess up, where you use like a defensive spell or you get too close to her, then she's going to all-in you with the W and with the E, and she is going to run you down like a dog. You're the dog in that sense. So one of the key things to keep in mind is that she kind of wins the lane by putting pressure onto you when it comes to trading, okay? If she can get good quality trades onto you, she can put kill threat onto you, and that's when you gotta respect, drop prio, and she might be able to just take over the map. In the highest level, Naafiri is a skirmisher. She wants to eventually get to level 6 and then start hunting people down with her ult that basically are out of position. Now, number one thing to do versus Naafiri, don't check the bushes level 1. Right, you saw what my jungler did there. Grave mistake, leading her to immediately get one-shot by the Naafiri. So you want to be very careful with these level 1 positions. Always just stand in the middle of the lane. Make sure that you don't give her an opportunity to get close to you, because you will get absolutely blasted by her all-in with Hail of Blades and, of course, the little doggies. The little doggies also get increased attack speed if she runs Hail of Blades. That's why it's so incredibly good on the Naafiri. So basically, trade kills. We're in an even spot in the lane. And what I'm going to try to do, starting from this position, doesn't really matter which champion that I'm playing, is I'm going to look to slowly take trades onto her while not taking any damage in return. A big part of my mindset in this lane is actually focusing on not getting hit by her spells, because the moment I drop low, that's when she's in a position where she can force all-ins onto me. There's even angles where she can dive with her W. It's very, very annoying. So I'm trying to trade onto her while not getting hit in return. That's my goal, especially not with the second part of her Q. Naafiri is a low sustain mid laner. She has very limited health regeneration, and the only way that she's actually going to be able to like properly sustain up in the lane is if she actually lands the second part of her Q, because then she actually gets healed. So if you get hit by a Q, that's okay. As long as you don't get hit by the second Q, you're generally quite fine. So a big part of your mental energy should also indeed then be, how do I not get hit by Naafiri Qs? And a big part of that is, of course, the anticipation. When does Naafiri usually throw her Q? Well, she usually throws her Q whenever you're last sitting standing still, because the ability is not like extremely fast, but it's not extremely slow as well. So it's pretty easy to dodge out upon if you are actually anticipating it and knowing that she might throw it onto your last hits. Then you can prevent it from hitting, and you're in a pretty good spot in the lane. Another key thing to keep in mind versus Naafiri is that your wave management needs to be on point, because she will all in you if she gets the chance. So in this specific case, right, one of the wave states that you like versus Naafiri is when it's generally quite held on your side. You also don't mind a neutral wave state, because neutral means that you still have the space to run away from her and the space to hit your minions. The only wave state that you absolutely despise is when it gets stuck on her side. So my favorite wave states are like a giga slow build, so I have a lot of minions that defend me for her all in, or when it's actually held on my side, because then she's forced to get the wave in, she's forced to step up quite close, and she usually takes quite a bit of damage doing so. So a wave state like this is one that I'm pretty happy with, especially when we're going to get towards the later parts of the lane, right? I'd like the wave state to be a little bit close towards my side, because otherwise she can just army on the long lane, and you might just get 100-0. So yeah, keep in mind, Naafiri has really strong all-in potential, and that's something that you got to be very, very careful of. Okay, so the moment you get enough small win-oriented trades, right? The moment she's too low to all-in you, that's when you're in a position where you can eventually just take control of the lane by actually starting to push her in, and she's going to be kind of stuck in the lane. The key thing to keep in mind when you play versus a low sustain assassin that wants to go in is that the moment that they are low, these champs are working with kill ranges, right? So if they cannot get the all-in onto you where they have enough HP to extend the trade, that's when their champion doesn't really function anymore, because they can't really all-in you because they're too low. And that's why certain runes like Scorch are like insanely valuable into these low sustain assassins, because you can just make him low and make him sweat in the early lane. Now, Naafiri is a skirmish oriented champion, okay? So we're going to need to talk about a little bit how we use our tempo in the lane. Because one thing that we got to keep in mind from Naafiri is that she wants to be able to then look outside of the lane and look to get ults onto the side lanes or look for jungle skirmishes and stuff like that. She's a really strong skirmisher. So the way that we prevent that is by understanding how tempo works in the lane. In this specific situation, it's a sub gap. The enemy rel comes over here on mid lane and helps Naafiri out of this awkward lane state by pushing out the wave. That's totally fine. What a lot of people will do right now is they will actually hard push this wave plus the next wave and then reset. But if we do that, Naafiri gets the reset off before us, comes back to the lane while we are then just resetting, which means that we give her a wave of opportunity where she can then look to impact the map. So instead of me pushing out these waves, instead I freeze the wave and make sure that I do not give her that opportunity to reset because I immediately match the base and then I match her tempo. And that way, it's going to be very hard for Naafiri to now actually get a playoff onto the map. And I keep her kind of stuck in lane while also denying her creeps. So this is a very frustrating way for Naafiri to play the game, where we do not give her an opportunity to actually roam around the map. So really intentional reset, preventing her from getting stuff done. And you see that this wave state location is once again in this really nice position, this really nice pocket closer towards my side. Look, I'm happy slow pushing. I'm happy holding it right there. Since I'm a level up right now, I can just kind of stat check her and do whatever I want. But the moment she reaches level 6, that's when I got to be a little bit careful. You see that this wave state now gets a little bit closer towards her side. So I want to get it out of this spot. But I also don't want it to like be in a spot where she can like freeze it and put me on a lot of threat, right? So one thing that she does here is that she recognizes that the lane is going to be really hard for her to beat because I bought myself a cloth armor. If you can get yourself cloth armor or ruby crystal, if it fits in your build, it's actually really, really good because you can kind of start stat checking these assassins and prevent them from working with these kill ranges, which means that you can basically just get full lane control. Definitely recommend exploring that. Other good options could be like running barrier if that's something that your champion rather wants to do. Also totally viable. And you see that I immediately just hold this wave and I just make it stack up closer towards my side because Naafiri cannot play on this part of the game here, right? This lane right here is absolutely unplayable from here, from this spot. So this basically forces her to move away from the lane because she cannot really contest me and basically flip a roam on bot. Now this is totally fine for us because we have our Lilia in the area there. So I wasn't too scared of her flipping a roam on bot. She goes for the dive. Naafiri was a very strong diver with a W. Yes, they kill my bot lane, but it's totally fine because we also kill them. And this is basically end of review. The moment a champion like Naafiri is behind, a champion that needs to go in is behind, she's going to be insanely useful. Insanely useless, guys. Very frustrating to play Naafiri from positions like this. So play with the small wins mindset. And the key thing you got to keep in mind is like the mindset that you want to run throughout the lane is how do I prevent her getting on top of me? That's how you manage the waves. That's how you space. That's how you position. How do I prevent her getting damage onto me? And if you lose versus Naafiri, if you still struggle, what I recommend that you review is the positions in the lane where you get like giga chunked by your trades. Figure out how you could have prevented that, maybe with your wave management or your positioning in the lane, maybe just disrespected or went for a creep that you weren't able to contest. And if she can get first move into place, figure out why she got the first move and how you could potentially prevented it. A good final tip is that if you're playing a champion like Orianna or Syndra, or a champion that has a really strong like kill ult or does a lot of damage, don't be shy using your R for lane control where you chunk the Naafiri and then you put them in a spot where they're very low and it's going to be quite hard for them to play around the map. If you're also playing one of those champs that has like this defensive spell, for example, like we're just going to take Syndra E, one of the key things you got to keep in mind is that you cannot use your E because the moment you use your E, proactively, she will all in you, especially post level 6. So make sure that if you have a defensive spell, like Syndra E, RE, that you use it reactively towards her so you prevent her getting on top of you, and then you can use the rest of your spells to slowly chip away at her health bar. Now, if you struggle into Naafiri, you definitely struggle into Fizz. So for that video, check it out right here.